of owning a cafe and other heroic deeds by Beware the Tristero. Chapter 22 of Predator and Prey, Part 2. Sharing a look with Tomra at the jingle of the door's cute little cat bell, Dobby hadn't been able to hide his laugh snort when he took in the Broadway reject who'd flanced into the cafe, his expression incredulous. Just when you thought Frohiros couldn't be any more obnoxious, he muttered whilst his friend, maybe more, chuffed. However, just in case he'd read the situation wrong, his eyes moved to Shoda, who seemed as nonplussed as he was, and at the subtle locking of their eyes, he tapped the shorter teen's knee.
Let's go bother the smalls,
he suggested with a mild shrug.
Oh, you worried about that prick?
The other replied quietly, his body getting up regardless.
Or are you just annoyed that someone else might be flirting with your dad?
He grinned, his smirk shitting.
Hey, just because this Burgadix looks like a comedy act doesn't mean he isn't worth being weary of,
the taller teen returned, before with a crooked grin of his own.
And don't act like you weren't the guy who told me that those probesters were nosebleeding over our dad, Tomu-kun,
he quipped.
Touche.
The slightly younger replied solemnly, and completely without denial, whilst they approached the booth behind the admittedly adorable he couldn't help but see Fuyumi Natsuo and Shoda whenever he looked at them. 6-year-olds, their knees shuffling along the padded seating so they could curl their heads over the happily smiling pair.
What you eating, Rugrats?
He asked when Izuku tilted his face up at him. Damn, he was certain that the kid had a quirk of super cuteness or something.
What's that guy's deal?
He asked, the index finger of his right hand pointing at perhaps the most ridiculous thing he'd ever seen.
Is he a freaking washing machine or...
Clang, clang!
Blinking, the four boys looked to where the smug, overly dramatic prick had just dropped some money on the service bar's counter. God, what a douchebag thing to do! While Shoda let out a sigh, his body moving forward a little to scoop up the coins, feeling his teeth grip because that was fucking rude. Who the hell did this jumped-up bastard think he was in his clown costume? Dobby was about to say something when... Let's see if I can make you disappear, eh? Balking, he and Tomra, already out of the booth and standing in the walkway whilst the younger children gasped, the flame quirk user felt his hands igniting as the masked fiend turned to him a blue marble tauntingly held between the middle and index finger of his left hand whilst he waggled his right index digit at them. Is it all, boys? He chuckled darkly. If I drop this little gem, or you burn it whilst trying to harm me, then your dear Aizawa-san will be the one to suffer. You hear? Hissing his eyes narrowing at the motherfucker! He then took 2 steps forward to shield the gasping, terrified, rapidly whispering children, whilst Tomra moved to his other side, the gloves he'd taken to wearing removed. What do you want? He snapped. Oh my dear boy, I have what I want! The concealed male tittered whilst lightly tossing the marble up in the air and catching it before playfully rolling it around his fingers. But on the off chance that any of you think of following me, well, I believe it's best to give you a few warnings, he announced blithely. Our lovely little cook isn't the only person who's needed for a quick chat just now. He revealed, his free hand snagging the cane that had been leaning against his leg to twirl and pointed at the startled Tatoshi. Your mommy is safe for that, Chibitan, but that'll change if you boys don't do exactly what I say, alright? So that means no sudden moves, no phones, no heroics. You got it? Scowling thunderously. Shit, what can you do? Dobby felt his teeth grit. Neither he or his partner were fast enough to grab the bastard before he could hurt Shoda. In the light of the cafe's overhead lamps, he could make out the silhouette of the man who'd saved him in the sphere, and if they rushed him, the gem could drop and smash, couldn't it? Shit! Where's my mom? Snapping his head to Hidoshi, his face flooded with tears whilst Izuku wrapped his arms around those tremoring shoulders, the freckled tot scowling at the criminal angrily. The oldest of the cafe's patrons was about to demand that the prick answer when, Your mom is... Blinking owlishly, the flame quirk user watched bewilderedly as 3 very amazingly fantastic things happened in rapid succession.
Release Aizawa-san, right now, unharmed, and then put your hands up after dropping that cane.
The first, as incredible as it seemed, the quivering masked man actually actually did as instructed whilst he and Tomura balked and Izuku stage whispered "Yes! I knew you could do it, Toshi! You're amazing!" His hands rubbing the slightly taller Tat's arms comfortingly. What? The second, Shoda was standing directly behind him, his friend, and the son of a bitch who'd summarily dropped his jewel-topped walking stick the cafe's owner back to them. You dare come into my home and frighten my kids, you smarmy prick. The third, his employer punched the villain's masked face so hard that the white ceramic covering shouted amidst the 6-year-olds cheering. Then, at those waves of ebony hair swirling into the air, he felt the tension in his shoulders relax and a relieved shock to chuckle even. Put your gloves back on, man, he told his still gawping partner as the now incensed self-defense instructor leapt onto the clearly broken-nosed bag of dicks and slammed him into the floor with an agonized scream. Good! Before forcing him onto his stomach and wrenching the other's arms back painfully. God! He... Stepping toward the boys, he scooped up Izuku and gave him a tight squeeze, before passing him to Tomura, who wrapped him in his protective arms with a pleased, "You're a fucking genius, Izu," and then pulled Toshi, now tearful again, into his chest. You're fucking amazing, you hear me? He breathed into the child's hair as the top whimpered into his neck. And we'll get your mom back too, alright? He promised before glowering down at the bastard stupid enough to attack them, a flicker of flames accenting his hair until, with a blink, a little voice whispered in the back of his mind. Hitoshi had made this fucker submit. Could the boy force people to tell the truth, too? Could he be the key to him taking down Endeavor? Now start talking, or I'll begin breaking your left arm at the wrist and working my way towards your shoulder. Oh, and believe me, you don't know what pain is right now, but you will. I'll make sure of it. So, talk. That's for another time. Saving Himiko and dealing with whomever had sent this now squealing and apologizing prick was all that mattered right now, wasn't it? Alright, I'm sorry, okay? Alright, already! Easing slightly, only slightly, mind you, he'd have snapped the bastard's arm because the prick deserved it. However, he needed answers, and if the criminal passed out, then he'd have to wait around for the police, which, with the teens here, both so sensitive and skittish, that had to be a last resort. Shoda dug his left knee into the other's lower back. The resulting yelp was satisfying. Boss-sama, you know him, right? Blinking, even as his bloody gaze reignited, even though the other's hands weren't a threat just now, the boot of his right foot was planted on the villain's right wrist, pinning it to the ground whilst he kept the left angrily wrenched. The eatery owner felt his blood run cold, Shinso Kimiko's frightened face during their first conversation flooding his mind. We had to move here a month ago. I couldn't afford the rent elsewhere, she continued after a beat. Hitoshi's been so brave, and I have to leave him so often, but he's so brave. She tried to laugh. His father and I, we married straight out of high school, and he was the smart one, she shuddered, and I just had the looks, she chuckled, the sound a little hysterical, and boss, he runs this block, he wants me to work for him, but I... Oh, fuck! I know of him, he hissed. What's this all about? He pressed his black jean-covered knee, kneading the other's coat and shirt-covered kidney. He just wants to talk to you about something! The man, bleeding from his nose all over his glittery red linoleum, wailed. He's got Shinso-san, too. Scowling angrily, the look softened when he looked back to Dobby, his employee carefully cradling a fretful Hitoshi to his chest, whilst Tomura similarly held a pale Izuku. Shouta sucked in a breath before slowly pulling into a stand, his prisoner dragged up and yowling to stand too, that left arm he held still bent and twisted in his grasp. Okay, he breathed. You're going to take me to this boss-sama. What? Sure,
We'll come with you. Wait.
Boys, he said quietly, his head turning back toward them, and by God, he hoped they could see just how proud proud! So ridiculously proud he was of them!
We need to think about this logically.
He soothed his voice and tone calm, even as he applied more pressure to the bastard he'd got when he tried to flinch away.
But, Dobby,
He cut in gently.
time is a factor, and as much as I know both you and Homer are strong enough and brave enough to assist me, I need you to protect the boys.
He stated.
We can't be sure if this sneaky shit is the only bastard we're dealing with.
He warned.
But, no.
He said, his head shaking, his smile soft.
If either of you use your quirks, if the police find out that you did, then I wouldn't be able to stop them from investigating you.
He breathed a sigh, leaving him when both of the teens flinched a little, their determination faltering.
As much as I appreciate and care for you both, I don't want you risking yourselves or the secrets you have every right to keep. Not when I can protect you from that, alright?
He stated before giving a little nod to the smaller children.
The best thing you two can be right now is protective older brothers to our favorite customers, alright?
Watching as they shared a look, the tots wrapped up a little more snugly as they tried to stem their tears. Each nodded slowly, allowing him to let out a small relieved sigh. He couldn't let anything happen to those teens or the boys.
He wouldn't. Okay.
He stated, his tone firm.
Izu, you have the keys to your apartment, don't you?
Yes?
Good boy.
He praised.
Take them there, lock the door, and...
But what if someone attacks the cafe? His employee cut in, his head shaking.
This is just a building.
He reminded.
I can rebuild this place, but I can't replace any of you.
He told them before nodding at the service counter.
Take my phone, go into the contact list, and call our local pros and Inko-san.
He instructed.
I'll need your phone too, please. They should be able to track it. Just slip it into my back pocket, alright?
Balking but swiftly moving into action, Dobby did as he was told with a thick swallow, whilst gently resting Hitoshi on his left hip to free up his right arm.
We can't replace you either,
he bit out hotly whilst pushing the device where he'd been told to.
So you better take care of yourself, you crazy nuts old guy, alright? I will,
he stated before, his eyes shifting to the sniffling boy in the teen's grasp. Oh, how he longed to hug him, hug all of them, but he couldn't risk letting his captive loose. He leaned closer to the teen's ear, his voice a quiet, deliberate whisper.
Tell the pros to try and keep the police out of this in the first instance. Sex work is illegal, and if we're not careful, Shinso-san could be arrested too.
Shit, that'd just be their fucking luck, wouldn't it? Pulling away, the tallest of the teens breathed,
You got it,
before moving to stroke the 6-year-old's hair for him.
Everything's going to be fine, alright? I won't let them hurt your mom, so keep being a brave boy for me, okay?
He told him, looking to all of them.
I am so sorry that you've all been drawn into this, and I swear I'll find a way to make it up to you. But for now, please get yourselves into that apartment and look after each other,
he urged. Then, his ire returning, he shoved the flaring, "Oh, I think you sprained my ankle, you know!" male toward the cafe's door and marched him through it.
Take me to where Shinso-san is being held and make it snappy before I decide to get snappy with your bones.
He hissed, his frown deepening when the other spotted that "Yeah, fine! I don't get paid if you don't go the anime." Growling angrily, so much for the inherent good of people. Ah! He looked up to the darkening sky and offered a little prayer. Hold on, Kimiko, he thought. I'm coming. If it weren't for the severe amount of pain lacing up and down his arm, Atsuhiro would have been mightily impressed by the tenacious and body strong, what a turn on, straight shooting young man literally shoving him down back alleys and side streets. You're a remarkable talent, you know, he praised as they walked in the near darkness. Boss Sama's main brothel, the place he'd been told to bring the cook to in order to receive the second half of his money, was nestled between some old, relatively small and disused warehouses only 5 blocks away from the Noraneko. Thank you, pro!
Stop talking.
An underground hero? A vigilante, perhaps? He continued after a sniff. His nose had only just stopped bleeding. I mean, you can't just be... Ah! Oh! He cried before chuckling because, well, was it this exciting? Thrillingly unexpected? Oh, yes. He could almost believe that the adorably gruff man he was leading would be more than a match for the classless thugs he was taking him to meet, and he was very much looking forward to watching him try, since he'd seen no point in misleading him after all. He'd attained his victory over him fair and square. Plus, he did want to make some kind of amends, truly. He certainly hoped he could continue to sneak into the cafe for a slice of cake or two in the near future, too. But these were more pleasant thoughts for later, weren't they? Because as they rounded one last dumpster-riddled side street, a wider, desolate road, poorly lit by a light scattering of flickering streetlights, opened up before them. Then its boarded-up, graffiti-painted windows staring back at them, he recognized the rancid building he'd visited last Sunday, his doe eyes narrowing at it, with a mildly disgusted huff. Brothels, to his refined palate, were disgusting places, brimming with used people and the stench of men too ugly to court or catch, his mind ironically supplied, a person of value, but still, a job was a job, wasn't it?
We're here, Aizawa-san,
he declared, his chocolate baklava-covered face inclining to the thick barred metal door directly across from them.
So, I can be on my way now, yes? Oh, and would you be able to not dispose of my favorite top hat? I do believe it's still on your lovely cafe's floor. Perhaps I could come back at another time to collect it, huh?
Oh, yeah, sure.
The other deadpan before giving his trapped arm. Jesus, was he really going to break it? A vicious twist.
You're not going anywhere, because you know full well that I can't get in there without you, so come on, no more stalling.
He ground out. You can't be serious, he sputtered. You're just one man.
And if you don't want your precious hat burned to cinders, then you'll get me through that door, won't you?
His captor. Oh, if only the tables were turned, he'd treat him so nicely, mockingly crooned.
Now go on. You're some kind of showman, aren't you?
Why, yes, darling, he breathed.
Then act like you have some balls.
The other huffed, and a bewilderedly pleased smile pulling his lips. That's a I couldn't tell his genuine pleased little laugh. Oh, if he hadn't been smitten before, he certainly was now.
Oh, hell!
Some days, Toshinori lamented, he did get a little sick of his own voice. Oh, Nana, this party is fabulous. Are you certain there isn't a little woman hiding away somewhere who keeps the apartment so spick and span,
Sure, he'd always been a bit of what Gran Torino affectionately called a ham, but that didn't mean that all of the posing, smiling, and corny dialogue didn't run a little thin every so often.
My goodness, look at the swimming pool. Quick, honey, let's go take some selfies with that all-night pool noodle. It's so cute. But at least he had a trip to the cafe to enjoy for tomorrow. Oh, yes, the Noroneko had become a bit of an oasis for him as of late, and in the future, he was certainly hoping that Aizawa could...
If you're gonna call me that, you may as well call me Shoda, hadn't you?
Shota-kun would consider him perhaps having a few quiet functions there on Sundays with a small gathering of people he could truly call friends. My, this penthouse is just as big as ours. Tell me, do you have a property portfolio? I could certainly help you craft one, you know.
He'd wanted the cafe owner there too, of course. But I had been teasing that he'd not been formally introduced as of late, hadn't he? Right now, between his Musutafu home and the cute little eatery, he knew where he'd rather be.
Goodness! Look at all of this Americana! Oh, did you pick up these artworks when you were last stateside on my summer?
For as the 50 people he didn't know,
all vetted by his agency's legal team, all bigwigs in some way or other, all decked out with diamonds, silks, and clothes that probably cost more than a year's worth of rent. Not that he could say anything there. He wasn't exactly poor now, was he? And talking at him, not to him, milled around him, this didn't feel like his home. Wow, I've never seen a couch so big. Ah, it's bigger than my bed.
However, when you belonged to a nation, he supposed being an individual was relative. Plus, hosting these vapid but surely well-meaning people for a few hours was a small price to pay, wasn't it? For every yen donated so that they could join All Might's big birthday bash was going to fund the building of a new hospital and a charitable organization which helped and supported the widows and children of pros who'd valiantly lost their lives in the line of duty. Oh, yes. for causes so dear to his heart, how could he not grin, sign autographs, and give them all the run of the place? A phone call is here! A phone call is here! Blinking and quickly turning away from his agent, a shrill yet astute, officious and hardworking woman, hell, the media didn't dare step a foot in this swanky apartment complex's lobby for fear of her wrath, who was already glaring at him. Toshinori quickly looked at the caller ID. He'd promised to switch the device off, because Mirai would approach him directly during this party if there was an emergency, but his hero duties coming before all else he'd forgotten. And as the name Shoda Kaneko appeared, he was suddenly and incredibly pleased that it happened. Skipping quickly to his impressively spacious larder, he'd been stood in the kitchen offering pre-made cocktails. After flagging down one of his security team to keep watch and swerve nosy bodies away, the blonde couldn't help his true smile as he accepted the call and placed it to his ear.
Ah, Shouta-kun, how are you? I'm a little busy at the...
Oh my god! Blinking, his eyes widening, the image of an emerald-eyed boy with a bright smile and curious nature popped into his mind despite the tearful, frightened tone crackling across the secure encrypted line.
But Nadia Shonen,
He asked.
does Aizawa-san know that you...
Aizawa-san is in trouble! Sucking in a breath, the neon blue of his eyes flashing, Toshinori was tugging his black dicky bow free of his neck and shucking his tux's jacket without a second thought.
Tell me where I need to go, Midoriya-kun.
He stated, his tone serious, and he walked through the wooden slatted door of the large store cupboard, his nostrils flaring amidst a sea of coos, ahs, and applause.
I'm on my way.